What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview. Every single week, I interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate professionals, and straight up top badasses. They're out there dominating their space. And today, you guys, we got another epic guest here on the podcast. Actually, a repeat guest, round number 2. I reached out to him, I'm like, dude, got to get you on for round number 2. You've been up to so many insane, amazing, epic shit since last time that we talked. So our guest today, you guys, just to give some quick context, you know, just like all of us in the real estate space, we start off as an individual agent, solo agent. Well, then he went from jumping in, being an independent agent, to building a mega team, a highly successful real estate team, the #1 actual real estate team in the state of Michigan. And then since has transitioned now into owning and operating the #1 independent brokerage in the state of Michigan. In 2022, he and his agents sold almost 900 homes. And his methods are very simple: follow core values and be accountable. So in addition to building this epic real estate business, and when he's not, you know, growing this empire and hitting the gym basement in his office building, you know, spending time, you know, he's a devoted husband and father, enjoys spending time with his family, and very passionate about horse racing. So John Wentworth, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, brother.
Yeah, thank you, brother, man. I appreciate it. It's always good being on. Love being on with your energy and another Michigander, which is very cool. So I'm ready to rock, man. I appreciate it. It's hotter than shit in this studio, but we're going to make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys, I'm going to link below. So wherever you're watching or listening to this, I'm going to link below first podcast that we did with John about 3 years ago, where we really went deep into his whole journey, how he went from a solo agent to being one of the top teams, the #1 team in Michigan, but then one of the top teams also home entire United States. So, you know, make sure to check that out. We're really going to go deep into, okay, what he's been up to in the last 3 years. But it's interesting when I first met John, when we first met, we were actually at, you know,
you love this story. This is like your favorite story.
Well, I did, because I was so blown away, man. We're at this real estate event and we're out at lunch, and, you know, I hadn't met John, you know, prior to this, and he comes up and we start talking, and he's, you know, telling me about his conversion rates he's getting on Zillow, and they were unheard of. And I was just like, and I felt like a jerk, but I was like, bullshit, dude.
Yeah,
you know,
totally did too. You're like, yeah, show me that shit.
Yeah, because there's so many in this industry, as you know, dude, that are just full of it, man. They don't, and I don't even think that they're intentionally lying. It's just that they don't actually run and operate.
They don't know.
Business.
They don't know.
Yeah, but you, man, you're like, no, dude, like, boom, pull up your trackers. You got your assistant on the phone, you know. And I saw your conversion rates and what you're doing with Zillow, and I'm like, dude, I got to get you on the podcast. I've never seen anybody converting this high when it not just Zillow leads, but online leads in general.
Yeah,
you know. So, you know, let's talk about, you know, last time we had you on, I think that you were just starting the brokerage from transitioning from a team.
Yeah, I mean, I had just gotten fired from Remax, essentially. So I remember I was in this building when we were on, but I was leasing it. Now we own it. And I was on the other side, crammed into a small space, because we were leasing 2,500 square feet. Now we have almost 12,000. We occupy the entire building, except we have a awesome dentist in the building. So yeah, it was crazy, man. That was literally, we had probably just moved in that office within a month.
Yeah. What, you know, some of those, I have to imagine what you went through was so scary, so stressful. You know, you walk in the office and then you find out everything's been severed. You've been kicked out. You don't have time to prep. You don't have time to plan. You got to go out there and figure this out. And it's, dude, if it's just one of us, that's one thing, but you had a huge team, infrastructure, staff, you know, but then those, you know, what seems like a curse turns into
became a blessing. Yeah, no doubt. And I think honestly, that was the, I had always known at some point we would do this, right? And I always felt like, you know, I didn't want it to be out of ego. I didn't want it to be, you know, it's the John Wentworth show, because it's never been about me. It's about the team. It's about the people that we serve in the community and inside of this building. You know, we've got, I mean, with agents and staff right now, we've got over 50 people on this team. And so honestly, when the guy sat in front of me and basically talked all of his bullshit and then said, "You're fired," I'm like, awesome. I'll get the fuck out of my way and let me go. Right. And so you didn't have time to plan, and you just take action. And I think that was awesome, man. That I look back on that moment, I'm like, damn, that was the best way it could have played out. You know, I ran home, I grabbed my wife. I said, "You got to come to the office with me." She's like, "Why?" I said, "We just got fired." And she's like, "Huh?" She said, "Are we going to be all right?" I said, "You're fucking right. We're going to be all right." Went to the office, pulled the entire team in, and didn't flounder in it. Didn't ask opinions. I said, "Here's what we're going to do now." Right. And I think that was a defining moment for us, and to get everybody's buy-in was awesome. And then we just started, fuck, knocking down trees, running around town, trying to find a place. And a lot of people were anxious about that. Like, where are we going to end up? Where are we going to end up? And I'm like, it's all good. We're going to take our time. We're going to end up in the right place. And honestly, like, this building, to fall into this building was just, it was God's blessing, truly, because again, taking 2,500 square foot of a 12,000 square foot building, that seemed daunting. Right. And now we're overflowing. And so it's just, sometimes I feel like you've got to take action, but you've also, we could have jumped into a shitty strip mall like everybody else does, you know what I mean? And just thrown a sign up and said, here we are, but just kind of waited for things to happen, didn't get impatient, took our time a little bit, stayed proactive, stayed on the lookout. I didn't find this place the first day we went looking. I found it like fucking 4 days later. Right. So taking a little bit of time, finding where we're going to go. As soon as we found it, we got under contract and we just started moving, and it's been onward and upward ever since then. In fact, we're coming up on so we went independent March of 2018. So what's that? 19, 20, 21, 22. I don't do math real well, but coming up on our 5-year anniversary, and we're damn near to $1 billion in sales since then.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. That's amazing, man. So then, well, just a curious personal quick question before I get into the next stuff. How long, like, I know that you mentioned, okay, this was always part of the vision. The long-term vision was to branch off and start your own brokerage. Like, what was your timeline on that before this? How long do you think that you would have waited until you made this move if you didn't get the X? Like,
yeah, honestly, I don't know the answer to that. It's a great fucking question. I don't know. I think about, as we grew, more and more people didn't even realize where we were, right? They didn't even, and I don't want to say the brand didn't fire me, a manager did, you know what I mean? So I don't want to cross that line, but at the end of the day, as we grew, more and more people were like, oh, I didn't even know you worked here. They'd come to the closing and they'd see this and they're like, I didn't even know you worked here. I just thought you were already independent. And honestly, I mean, for me, it was never about money. So I didn't have a timeline on it. I just always felt like, because people would always say this to me, when are you going to go independent? When are you going to do your own thing? I'm like, when it's in God's hands, when it's his will for that to happen, it will happen, and we'll do it. Right. And I love that in business, so often we have to be very proactive. We have to take risks. We have to do these things. There are also times when we don't have to do that. We can just continue to grow and let things unfold, let things develop. And it's just like, we open an office in Traverse City. Like, it would be easy to go up there and rent the best fucking space up there and put a big sign, but we need to grow into that area. That's well, you know where the shit is because you're from Michigan. It's 4 hours away from us. Nobody knows who the hell we are there then. Now they do. We did 30 million there last year, right? But it takes a little bit of time to grow into that. And I've made those marketing mistakes where you think you can go spend your way into a market, and you can't. You've got to build from goodwill, from trust, and that takes time. And so I think patience is just so important with all of this stuff. And most of the times, I think when people, want to break off, they want to break off because it feels really good to them, because it's their name in headlights, and none of that shit fucking pays the bills, and you said something earlier and it resonates so well with me, like this mastermind that we're getting ready to start. Like, I'm really passionate about understanding that there are so many teams, team leaders, brokerages, whatever you want to call it, that on the outside, it looks good, and on the inside, they're struggling. And especially in the teams where the team lead, because I've been there, I had to sell a fucking 120 homes to keep the doors open in the winter. And winters in Michigan, I had to pull money from our credit line to keep the doors open. And then going through that transition of being able to get, out from 120 sales. Sheplack always talks about this, right? When we're chatting, he's like, remember when you were selling 120 homes a year? And I'm like, yeah, so does my wife. Like, it was a bitch, and going from 120 to 80, from 80 to 40, from 40 to 10, right? Now, obviously I'll friends, close, whatever it might be, I'll sell 5 homes a year. Right. And so I understand that there's so many people in that position. Those are the people that I really want to help. People always ask me about this mastermind that we're going to do. Is like, is it coaching? I'm like, I don't know. You can call it whatever the hell you want. It's really just helping people break through in those, you've gone through it, right? You hit a glass ceiling and you got to figure out a way to break through it. And then once you do, you hit another one, you got to figure out a way to break through it. So for me, that's really what drives me in helping people. It's not the, helping somebody sell. If you want to learn how to sell more homes, come join the team. But I'm not really interested in like coaching a guy. Hey, here's how you sell 5 homes this month or quarter instead of 2.
Yeah. So what would you say? So, because we have a variety of listeners, meaning, those that are independent agents, those that are team
Yep.
leaders, those that are brokerage owners,
Yep.
and that becomes a decision that people need to make if they want to continue to grow and scale. At some point, you can only go so far, doing this on your own. So at some point, you got to start making that decision. Okay, do I go the team route? Do I then maintain a team route, or do I go the brokerage route? Now that you've been in both worlds, what have been kind of the pros and cons of each?
I mean, the profitable route is the pro, right? In other words, again, people they want to paint a picture. It's like fucking Instagram, right? I mean, people stand in front of a Lamborghini that they leased for the day. So for me, it's very much like, what is the profitable route? Not what's in it just for me, because profit means keeping the doors open. Profit means paying 12 employees. Profit means providing leads, opportunities for our agents, all of those things, right? Being able to do all of those things. It should never be about ego. And I think too often people like they're taking the next step out of ego. So that's where I go back to that patience. It's like, okay, have you built it strong? I mean, motherfuckers are building teams that they don't even have enough leads for themselves. Yeah. Well, then how are you going to build a team? Right. And again, I think too often it's just out of, they're anxious. There's some ego involved. They want their name in the spotlight, even though they probably, knowing the shit we've gone through, they probably don't want their name in the spotlight when it really comes down to it. Right. Because it's not easy. I mean, 7 or 8% of the world is, or I don't know, but the world, America's entrepreneurs, 1% succeed. It's a tough road. And I think that's kind of the difference, where people really first need to make a decision on what do you think you really want, instead of, because some people jump all over the place, right? Like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And the people that stay, agents on our team, the people that stay the course, that just buy into the systems, that put their, like, I want them to be authentic. I want them to be their own person, right? But still following the system. I mean, they have accelerated growth year after year after year after year, being on a team making 400 grand. That can happen, right? Now, if that's not enough and you want more, well, then you got to understand you're starting fresh, right? You step out of sales and you're really good at sales and you're going to go build a business. You're starting fresh, doing something that, just because you're really good in sales doesn't mean you're really good at leading, doesn't mean you're really good at operations, doesn't mean, and you've got to be able to do all of those things. So I think it's really just an understanding of making this choice or changing my direction. What does it really mean for me? And is that really what I want? And then if it is, then you got to surround yourself with the right people to help you get there. And you and I know this, right? I mean, even to this day, I'm coaching with Shep Black, right? It's always being able to be around that mindset of people. And mindset's just one thing, right? Mindset's kind of a cool term, but really it's the belief that you can do these things. It's the belief in the product that you're putting forward. It's a belief in the people around you. So, man, I don't know. I think that everybody has to have their own journey, and at the same time, understand that along that journey, you're going to have to pivot a lot. If you take this step out from sales into trying to build a team or a brokerage or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I will say it's out of everything I've done, meaning, okay, overcoming obesity, overcoming, my massive problems that I had with alcohol and addiction. Dude, this has by far been way more challenging. Figuring out how to grow a successful real estate business and continue to scale it. But that also is why it's so rewarding. And
that's just it. Yeah, I mean, that's just it. That's the reward. The reward isn't in the money part of it. The reward's in going through that journey, and recognizing, like, having this conversation with you, thinking about where we were 3 years ago, and how different things are right now. Man, that feels really good. And it's not a feeling from finances. Are the finances better? Sure. Right. More risk, more reward. But it's like, man, in just 5 years, shit, was it? I don't know, whatever, I don't know time well, but in such a short amount of time, how much you can do when you stay focused and you stay the course.
Yeah. So then, you talked a couple times now about profitability, the brokerage side being more profitable for you. Now, most in this industry, when I say most, I mean just the word on the street that we get told is that, brokerages aren't profitable, the margins are so thin. And I don't know if that's just a way to try to scare
they stay open
leaders to not jump into that path. And I know that there's a lot of bad operators out there, so that some aren't profitable when it comes to that. But in what ways have you seen it? Like, when it comes to that profitability? I mean, what ways?
I mean, we still operate as a team. Just because we're an independent broker, nothing from the way we ran our business, you know, before we got fired, the way we ran our team then is the same we run our team now. Obviously, we've made adjustments along the way, et cetera, but we still operate as a team. And I think that in our industry, you know, the model of a typical brokerage is pretty much broken. You know, I mean, there's one or two, you look at any office, there's at least around here, there's maybe one top producer, whatever the hell they define a top producer, somebody kicking ass, right? There's usually one. There's not even usually two. In our office, we got freaking 17 people on track to make 100 grand this year, right? We've got, I mean, I don't even remember all the numbers. I need Adam in here because he knows us shit like the back of his hand, right? So I don't need to. But building a team where everybody can win, building a team where everybody's super successful, and everybody has their own definition of success, but having a multitude of high performers. And I think teams give people the ability to do that because it takes everything off the agent's plate. And I think that's really why teams have grown so quickly. I mean, shit, I remember going on appointments, people like, what's a team? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they didn't even understand the concept. Now, if you said, they'd be like, what's broker mean? Right? Because teams are so well known, and I think teams are going to continue to grow. So we still operate as a team. You know, obviously, as I said, we've made some changes, adjustments, we've grown, added more people, but from a profitability standpoint, I mean, you know, going back to what I said, I mean, it wasn't long ago in the winter, man, I was taking money off the credit line, and my wife would say to me, why are you doing this? Like, what's the point? You made way more money when you were selling. I'm like, yeah, but the shit isn't about me. Right. I know that, yeah, I can make more money selling, but that's really not fulfilling. Like you get to a point where, especially for me, man, I like to bring people together. I like to help people grow. I like to help people do better in life. Like what they do in life matters to me just as much as what they do in their business. So for us, it's really about bringing people together, growing them, long-term relationships with them as well. You know, we have agents been here 10, 12, 13 years. You know, they could go anywhere they want and get a bigger split. Well, then why do they stay? Well, yeah, if you're selling, let's just say you're selling 20 million, 30 million, you go somewhere else. Guess the first two things you're going to do is you're going to go hire an assistant and somebody in marketing. You know what I mean? So that money that you think you're getting, you're now spending way more time managing people. You're spending time hiring people. You're spending money on all of those people. Is that going to take away from your ability to go out in the marketplace and sell? Fucking right it is, right? So I think everybody kind of has to find what am I looking for in life? Right. And it was the same thing for me. I didn't want to be tied to just my sales forever. And I also didn't want to be, you know, like, as you said earlier, I'm in horse racing. Right. And I've always said like, and I've had some horses win some really big stakes. Right. But the day that I win the Derby or the Breeders' Cup, would I make more money if I owned the horse and stood there by myself? Yeah. Fuck that. I want to stand there with 10 of my friends that own a piece of that horse. And really, that's what I love about this team is just the ability to build all of these deep, long-term relationships. That's the profitability.
Yeah. And you know, I always looked at it too of it's very difficult if you want to continue to grow and scale your income, unless whether you call it team route, broker route. I mean, fundamentally, it's the same thing. But it's like, okay, if you also want to be able to continue to grow and scale your income while having a life.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you got it. And when I say team, I'm just talking more than one, you know, right?
More than one.
Two human beings teaming up, and then it's however big you want to scale it, you know, but it also then gives you back for a little bit of freedom.
I was just looking on Instagram, one of our agents, who's one of our top producing agents, she's on a plane again, going to Florida. And obviously we're around spring break right now, but I mean, her boyfriend is a pilot. Right. So she's going all the time. She has the ability to tap into teammates, help her with those things. But I think too often people are focused on the money and they lose sight of, okay, but there's a sacrifice with everything. Right. I mean, more money, less time, tons of time, less money. You know, I don't know that there's a balance with anything, but there's a sacrifice with everything. And I think, again, that's like people need to understand, you know, somebody on our team is invested in the growth of this company with us. Right. Yeah. We're invested in them. They're invested with us. We grow together. They get more opportunities, they get more support, and they get time. And man, I mean, we all hear it. You know, people talk about somebody on their deathbed. The first thing they say is, I wish I had more time. I wish I had spent more time with my family, my loved ones, my spouse, whoever it may be. And so being able to to have both of those things in your business and have, like, I always think about people here, and I don't want, this isn't about our shit, right? But it's the only thing I really know well about is to talk about that is, like, for me, it's about creating long-term sustainable careers for people. We're in a market shift, right? We're going to sell 100 homes this month in March in Michigan. And all the agents over there are crushing it, right? Because we've built, I hope and I believe, right, we've built this company in such a way that we can sustain shifts like this. And I think we're proving it right now. So again, time, money, security matters as well, right?
So then, all right, let's transition into, because again, we have a lot of team leaders, brokerage owners that are, listening to this podcast. And, one of the most difficult things is getting higher productivity out of agents. You just talked about it with, okay, hey, maybe this office has one top producer and then everybody else.
Yep.
But if you break those down, and I know that, I don't know, 100 units a month is, the norm, or, if it's beyond or below that with your growth run rate. But that breaks down to, with your agent count, for what you said earlier, roughly 2 average transactions per agent, which if you look at most brokerages, that's what, 0.6, 0.5.
Yeah.
And even most teams, as the team gets larger, teams might be a little bit higher, but the average team that I see is usually around 0.8, as far as transactions per agent per month. So, what has been the key for you? Because it's like, okay, we can go in out and recruit all these bodies, which is part of it. But then from there, it's like, you got to make sure those people that you're bringing in are leading them to success.
Yeah. For us, bringing people in is first foremost culture fit, right? Like, we never go, hey, let's go recruit the highest producers. I don't even look at what they produce. I look at, who are they as a human being, right? Are they going to be somebody that can walk into this building, swallow their pride a little bit if they already have been in the business, or if they've not been in the business, be very open and coachable, which no matter whether you've been in short-term or long-term, you've got to be that, especially in real estate. Like, real estate is so ever changing, which again is one of the things that I love about it, right? Like, the world is ever changing. Real estate is at the fore of these ever changing things. So for us to keep an agent productive, really, I could say some cliche shit, but at the end of the day, it does come down to them. And that's where I go back to, you've got to hire the right people in the first place. Now, also having an environment of a bunch of high performers helps create more high performers, right? High performers, it's just like sports. High performers want to be around high performers. Michael Jordan doesn't want some motherfucker showing up to practice late. In fact, he'll go off on him. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be here, there are expectations, right? Now, with those expectations, again, we're going to help you balance your life and all of those things. But so for me, a lot of it is them declaring really what they want and then helping them apply accountability to that, right? So for us, when we forecast a year, we break it down into months, into weeks, right? What are we doing today? What are we doing this week to get the month that we need to get to the year that we need? So I think helping them tie it to something that's important to them too. The number you want for them isn't the number they want. So we have to understand what do they want. They have to understand what can they gain from that, right? So we'll do an exercise where bringing agents up in front of the team every month, the beginning of the year. What's your commitment for the year? How many families are you going to serve, right? What will that do for your income? And with that income, what will you be able to do that you haven't been able to do in your past, or that maybe you've never been able to do in your life and always wanted to? Some people it's pay their mortgage off. Some people it's a vacation that they haven't gone on in 3 years. So there's a lot of different variables. But even with all of that going on, I think at the end of the day, when you say something in front of your peers, it holds way more weight. So I love to declare, goals, commitments, however people want to say it. I love to declare those things publicly, even on Facebook, right? Like, that was a cool thing about doing 75 hard is, like, I'm declaring the shit every day. So I'm not hiding in the closet talking about whether I did it or not. I'm declaring it every day. So I can't fuck it up. Right now, I did 75 hard. I did the next 30 days, blah, blah, blah. And then I did mess it up. Right. Well, I declare that too, because I'm human, and so, but high performers want to be around high performers, plain and simple. And I think if you have a team, a brokerage, or whatever that may be, in the interviewing process, it's really setting the tone and framing what they're walking into, and not just taking everybody. And I think that's the other mistake people, when we just interviewed this week, right? I've interviewed 5 different people, a couple for staff, a couple for agents. I don't hire them all. most brokerages, and I hate to say this, but it's a fact. I mean, they have fucking sign in the yard now hiring, right? Like if you have a heartbeat, you're hired. And we just don't operate like that. I don't think that's good for the consumer if we're just hiring everybody with a heartbeat. So again, I think it goes back to hiring the right people, knowing that they're going to be, like people say, well, they should be honest. Well, yeah, no shit. Everybody should be, right? So I want to go way deeper than that. I'm like, okay, what is their real work ethic like, right? Are they relentless? Are they resilient when times get tough? So for me in the interview, it's like, tell me the most difficult thing you've ever lived through, right? Because I know mine, and everybody has something. And I think when you can get people to open up and talk about those things, again, you start to build a deeper relationship also with people. And I think that's super important too, is that they know that you really have their back and they know that you really do care. So, I mean, it's a friggin' plethora of things, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think the two things to keep an agent going, to keep them more productive. And I don't know that you can make them more productive, because sooner or later they're like, okay, that's my limit, right? Which is why you do have to recruit. You're not going to get a single agent to sell 400 homes a year, right? And you don't have to. But I mean, hell, we had, I think 4 agents last year sell over 50 homes, right? So I think bringing people up to their maximum potential is really what our job is to do, and helping them see what that really could be, and then making that easier for them than it has been in the past when they were doing all the shit, running around town, paperwork, signs, all that jazz on their own.
So then, you mentioned culture and the importance of culture. And, you also, part of the intro, you mentioned that, okay, hey, look, they got to follow the core values and be accountable. So in core values, being part of that culture, and culture is something, that term gets thrown around so much,
Dude,
It's
totally.
become cliche, but
it's cliche. It's cliche unless it isn't. And I say this all the time, like culture is just a word until you live it. Like here at this building, and I don't know how the fuck we did it, we literally have one of the best cultures probably in any business. And I think it goes back to the very beginning. Yeah, we want to earn good money. Yeah, we want to have a good living, but we're not just in it for the money. We're not just in it for self. And that goes back to the hiring the right people. I'd much rather hire somebody that is going to be a team player, that is going to be, very open to, like we were just talking about this morning in the gym, right? David, one of the guys on our team, he's been coming to the gym like crazy. We do a Bible reading we turn the light off. We do a Bible reading, listen to some Christian music after we work out. Right. I mean, it's phenomenal. Guys in there crying, guys opening up, guys being vulnerable. And David's like, man, I feel like the more open I am, the more involved I am, or more I'm around the right people, the more all these things just start showing up in my life, And so that's part of, I think, that's when culture is real culture. That's when it's not a word anymore. And I think that is probably the biggest thing that is missing in so many businesses, especially when they're trying to just hire anybody they can. They're trying to scale really quick because it looks good and they think there's more money in it. But I'm always thinking about, is our foundation strong? Are we sustainable for long-term growth rather than quick growth?
So then if we have somebody that maybe is like, man, my culture sucks, or maybe they're like, hey, I'm on the beginning stages of this and I want to make sure that we build the right culture, does that really begin for you is the leader of the organization of getting extreme clarity on what your core values are that need to be shared by everybody in the organization?
Yeah, and I think it's like, you can also, saying words doesn't create culture, right? So having core values is not what's going to create culture. It's living core values. And so for us, it's like, okay, we don't say, okay, here's some really cool words that would be good core values. Now let's try to be them. And so really I went back when we went through this exercise, because we had some plain Jane goofy ass core values, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, we really need some real core values. So I went back and I looked at what were the things that got me here, so that those agents can tie themselves to those things that will help get them there. Right. And so I think that, to answer your question, like if you think like your culture's not great, the core values aren't the only thing that's going to fix it. As a leader at that point, you probably need to look in the mirror. Right? Because you probably have not modeled what you expect from your people. You may not be showing up every day the way you expect your people. You may be on the fucking boat on Thursday until Monday. And expecting your people to be busting their ass, right? But they're going to follow your lead because you are the leader, right? So do I have to come here every single day? No, but I do. You know what I mean? And then I could reverse that and say, do I have to? Yeah. Because the shit that's going to go wrong it may not happen right away, but sooner or later it will start to weaken the culture because I am part of the culture, you know? So the core values aren't just going to fix it if you think your culture is fucked up now. First, you got to own it. You got to look in the mirror. You got to say, am I modeling the behavior that I expect out of my people? Right. It's like we're sitting here in t-shirts, right? This is always something that comes up for me. I don't go sell homes anymore. I don't need to be in a suit and tie. But boy, the more times I wear a t-shirt, the more motherfuckers show up in a t-shirt. Right. So, you know, I know my days when I'm doing trainings, when I'm doing team meeting, I'm suited up, you know, and it's just, I think there's a lot of things. And it's really difficult to answer these questions because as you know, man, there's so many different ways this thing can go when it comes to culture, when it comes to business, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to branding, all of those things. There's so many different ways you can go. But I think at the beginning, first and foremost, we got to look in the mirror and we have to figure out, like, if the culture's jacked up, it's probably us, right? Plain and simple. Now, if the culture is not too bad and you want to strengthen it, well, then you can go through a core value exercise but again, there is no one thing that's going to like flip a switch and everything changes. You got to live it every single day. And I think the other thing, you got to get buy-in from people, right? Like it's got to be part of that. Those core values have to be part of what they want to be part of. Understanding what are those core values going to do for me? Because at the end of the day, people want to know, well, what's in it for me? You know, that's human nature and that's okay. We need to understand that. So it's, the core values are important. They're not the only thing. And I think too often people are like, oh, I got core values. Okay. But that doesn't mean you have culture.
Yep. Yeah. One of my long-term business mentors, Darren Hardy, you know, he's like, okay, as a leader of an organization, your number one priority is whatever their core values are. Your number one priority is to become a level 10 of each one of those core values.
Yeah.
You know, to your point, like you got to live it, you know.
Yeah. And so we do that, right? Like we do a people analyzer, not every month, but you know, we try to do it once a month. We do it in interviews. We do it when we let people go. Like we roll it out and say, where are you on this scale compared to our core values? And they answer the questions for themselves sometimes on their way out the door, you know, and here's the other thing. Not everybody, we go back to brokers, want to hire anybody with a breath. Not everybody's going to be your culture, and that's okay. Right. But keeping people around that aren't your culture certainly hurts your culture. So it's okay to let people go. It's okay for people to move on. No problem, no harm, no foul. Go do your thing. We're going to keep growing with or without you. So it's fine. And I think too often people hold on to people. I just had this conversation with the guy the other day. He's like, man, you know, he's this and he's that and he's this and he's that. And I'm like, well, what the fuck's he doing on your team then? Get rid of him. You know, but I don't know. That's scary for people. They want to hold on.
Yep. So then
every time we've gotten rid of somebody that wasn't that didn't fit our core values, the floor is like, yes. And you didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Right. But everybody's like, yeah, I'm so glad you got rid of that person. But you sometimes didn't know it. And I'm like, well, fucking tell me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. No, okay. So then let's just say, okay, they're a core value fit. They are a culture fit. Now you're onboarding them, bringing them on. What does that look like when it comes to, okay, because we got to make sure that they are trained properly on the process to execute on. And then we have the inspect what you expect, kind of that accountability element. But first, like walk us through, like, what is that, you know, what are you doing to ensure that your people know exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it, why to do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, when you're talking about a brand new agent coming into real estate, is if that's what you're talking about, somebody transferring from a different brokerage or team, it's very different. Somebody coming in that really knows nothing, you know, obviously in real estate, man, if I sell a home my first week, I'm still not getting paid for 45 days. Right. So if you take forever to train these people, they're going to be gone, you know, unless they've got a ton of money saved up, which they probably don't. Right. So you've got to be able to train them quickly. But what we found is, like, you can train the shit out of them until they get in the field. They're really not learning. And so mentorship is super important. Getting people in the field, you know, we bring them in, we train them, we teach them the systems, the tools, follow-up boss, all of those great things, right? But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to function in the field. And again, it's funny because this goes back to who you hire, right? If you're just trying to fill a seat and they might be the tech savviest person on the planet, but if they can't communicate with people, which real estate is not about sales, really, it's about people. It's about relationships. It's about communication. It's about creating trust. It's about being personable. And so if you don't have somebody that can do those things, all the training in the world is not going to help them. But we have really gotten to a point where we're like, okay, listen, the same way if we have an agent that's already been an agent and they're struggling and they're not putting in the effort and they're not showing up and they're not doing the things that they know that they need to do, we put them on a 30-day cliff. You've got 30 days to do this. It's tracked daily. And if by the end of 30 days, you haven't done these things, peace out. There's no second chance. It's done. We're like, well, why don't we reverse that? Because shit, if somebody's first 30 days can't commit to that, they're certainly not going to do it down the road, right? So then we started to break this training and onboarding, all this stuff down to, you got 30 days. Here are the things you got to do inside of 30 days. I'm not going to hold your hand. These are the things you got to get done. If you don't get them done, we're just going to part ways. It's all good. And by doing that, when people commit to that and you've hired the right people, like Kendra, she just joined our team, right? Just got her first pending yesterday, fresh into real estate. I mean, this lady calls. I got people on the team texting me, man, bro, she's a beast, right? Doing all the things that need to happen. And when you do that, of course, those results come. So I think that, there's plenty of training in this industry. People can Google, they can YouTube, they can do whatever the hell they want to get plenty of training. For us, it's getting people in the field. Like I just interviewed the gal the other day. I'm like, I don't know. Put her in an open house with one of our agents this Sunday and let's see how she communicates with people, because we're in a people business. So I don't get too lost in all the malarkey of nobody's going to know everything, right? People learn by doing. So I want to give people the basics and then get them in the field with an agent that knows what they're doing as their mentor to help them along the way, but just getting them out, getting them in somebody's car, getting them on the road, letting them hear conversations with that agent as they're going about the day. And that's another thing, like being in the office is so important for agents. Like even a buddy of mine who's not in real estate the other day, he's like, I don't even know why you got that big ass office. Realtors don't need to go in the office. I'm like, yeah, they fucking do, man, because there's collaboration going on. And again, when you have a bunch of high producers, there's there's high level collaboration going on. And so just being in the room, being in the office, listening, absorbing, and again, being in the right environment, because if you're in a closed door environment, you're not learning from these people, right? So we have a wide open floor, everybody's talking, communicating. And that to me is when people learn the most. They're hearing, they're seeing, and they're doing. And listen, I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to go show a house, right? Like you got to know how to write a purchase agreement. You know what I mean? Like if you break down what it takes to help somebody buy a home, you got to know how to write a purchase agreement. You got to know how to open a lockbox. And if you can do those two things, you can write a purchase agreement. Then you got to know negotiating tactics. You got your mentor. You know what I mean? You've got to know, okay, well, shit, it's a highest and best. What am I going to do? You've got your mentor. But none of that even occurs if you can't connect with people once you're in the field. So for me, so much of it is about the agents just being able to connect with people on a humanistic level. And then obviously they do have to bring value, right? But at a brand new agent early in the field or early in the stages, they need that mentor that they can be with to really gain that knowledge as they go through these transactions, through their first, 5, 10 transactions.
Yeah. So then when you structure something like that, is that just something where, because there's a lot of other companies that do, something, a mentorship style program where it's like, okay, your first 6 transactions, and maybe it's, they got to give a percentage of their commission, for that mentor. Is that something similar to what you were doing?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we've tried all of those things. And what we really learned is that the agents really don't give a shit about getting a portion of the commission, and I think that again goes back to that real true culture, right? They want to help the agent succeed because when they started, somebody helped them succeed.
Yeah.
And so being able to rinse and repeat that is so huge. So now, you've taken these top agents that are helping people come in the same way somebody did that for them. And now these new agents start to grow and have success. And the next group comes in and they're helping them. And so honestly, it was like we did, you get a percentage, you get this much each deal. And finally the agents are like, we don't even give a shit. Now, sometimes agents will go in on a deal together. There's a lot of like, people generally grow pretty close with their mentor, which is pretty cool. So they're spending time together. They're splitting deals together. They're coming up together, if you will. But ultimately, we let the agents work that out. Again, the money can't be the drive. If the money's the driver on why I would help somebody, Now I know there's time and money, right? Again, but if the money is the only driver on why I would help somebody, that means you really don't even want to be helping them. So we're looking for people that realize someone did it for me. When I joined, someone reached out, helped me, brought me along. Like when we first started growing this team, I'd put them in my car and they'd go with me all day long. We go on friggin' 8 listing appointments in a day, and Jake or Todd or Andy or whoever the hell it was sitting next to me. Obviously, when you've got 50 people and you're starting to really scale, you can't do that, but you can. It's just not me. So once we kind of reverted to that, which was not long ago, actually, probably like, again, you're always ever changing, right? You're always tweaking these things. And then something comes along, you're like, oh, that shit looks cool. But I feel like the tried and true methods for us are, again, going back to, what worked for me? And then how do we create something that is as similar as that? And what worked for me was being in the field. I learn on the go. I learn as I do, right? You can tell me all the shit you want to tell me. I'm a visual guy and I'm an experienced guy. And I think most humans are, right? Like you've got to just go do the shit and you've got to learn in the field. Hands-on is the train, great. But if you can't go execute in the field, you can't have a conversation with somebody, you're screwed. Doesn't matter how much you know. It's like taking the real estate test. I failed that fucking thing 4 times. Obviously that has zero bearing on my success. Right? If they would have put me in a room with somebody and just let me talk to the person and they asked me all those questions, I probably would have passed with flying colors. So I think it's just everybody has their little tweak on how they want to do it. I'm a big believer. You got to get people in the field, and you get people in the field with somebody on the team that is willing to help because they want to see them succeed the same way somebody else did for them.
Yep. Awesome, dude. So then, so when it comes to the accountability portion of it, because I know from our previous conversations, to be able to get those results that you do, like with Zillow, like we were talking about when we started this podcast, like, okay, you've got to have a very set, proven process that everybody, needs to follow, or a very close variation of that to get those conversion rates, right? So then from there, what do you do to then inspect what you expect? Because so many team leaders, man, I talk to so many of them, almost on a daily basis, that this is where it seems like they get in financial trouble, is they're investing so much in leads, not getting their agents to convert. They can't identify that problem. They're not inspecting what they're expecting.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that problem is, you just said it, they're getting so many leads. I think people get in a trap of thinking they need more leads. And the more leads you have, you get to a point where you get lead fatigue. Like, and here's the thing, like we're giving them way more leads than they need, but we're doing that because they think that they need them. Right. And so we haven't coached them properly to say, no, you really don't need that many. You need to convert on these. So, and to answer your question, the accountability piece, really comes down to how you're structured, right? What kind of leads, understanding the leads. Is it a typical internet lead that's 2% conversion, or a Facebook lead, or, there's all these different conversions to all these different leads. But at the end of the day, even with Zillow, like we have people that convert at 25% on Zillow right now. We have people that convert at 8% on Zillow right now. Right. So it's like, and that's the tough part, because you say, well, shit, why can't everybody convert at 25%? You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, not everybody's Tom Brady. And as a leader, sometimes you have to accept that. And again, as I said earlier, just trying to get the most out of that particular person that you can get. You're trying to get them to the highest level of what they're capable of. I don't need to get somebody to the highest level of what that person's capable of. I'd love to. All right. Wouldn't every NFL quarterbacks be like, well, shit, I'll just be Tom Brady. Right. But people aren't all built the same. And so it's like, how do I get the most out of each particular person? So accountability is a big piece of that. Right. And for us, we get a lot of organic leads because we're branded so well in our marketplace, right? Like our phone rings all the time. Then we add Zillow Flex, and that alone is a monster. Right now, if I were like, oh shit, we got to get more leads, and I think leaders get caught up in this, right? We see the bright, shiny object, and I've done it, so I know it's true. We run towards the next thing. Oh shit, I can do that and get 100 more leads. But if you can't manage the fucking things, there's no sense in having them, because you're just wasting money and you're fatiguing your agents even more than you know. So the accountability piece for us, we don't apply accountability to anything other than Zillow and what we would call like our money phone, right? Like when somebody calls the office, people generally call the office, it's for listings. There are some buyers as well inside of that. Maybe it's 50-50. I don't know. But for Zillow, being involved with Flex, like everything is so transparent and they do such an amazing job of giving us all the data that then we take that data and say, well, where people are failing on this data, it's probably the same place where they're struggling on any other lead source. So that's been really cool to be able to say like, okay, they're really good on the phone, right? Zillow, the phone rings. They're really good on the phone. Customer hangs up, says, yes, I'll work with this person. Man, great job. You did great on the phone. Setting the appointment. Did you go on the appointment? After you went on the appointment, did you write an offer? Right? So what's your offer rate? And you extrapolate that over time, and it gives you a picture of where people are struggling. Not setting any appointments. They need work on the phone. Getting the appointment, hitting all their metrics, not writing any offers. Obviously, they need help in the field, right? They're struggling in the field. So for us, accountability for us is I run 2 accountability groups a week, run a month. We have meetings always at 10 a.m. Keep it really simple. We run an accountability group on Monday. There's probably 14, 15 people in there, right? It's very specific. They make 3 specific, actionable, measurable goals with a deadline, which is the next week. And that's what we roll through. We do 2 business, 1 personal. They are not mandatory unless you're brand new, because we want people to be in there that want to be in there. I don't need my guy that's going to sell 20 million this year in there. If he wants to be in there, great, but he probably has enough to do, right? So creating, and as we walk through these, really what we're doing is we're creating a mindset for people of like, if I speak it, if I verbalize, if I shake your hand, if I give you my word, am I going to follow through? And these are 6-week increments. We just ended this week, actually, a 6-week increment. We ran a Monday and Wednesday, 14, 15 people in each group. And at the end, people get to share. And some of them have never done them. They're brand new. They're like, this is the most amazing thing. I thought it was so goofy the first week. And then I learned so much about myself. And it goes back to, it's not what we tell them to do. It's because if we tell them to do something and they don't own it, it's not theirs, it's probably a better chance that they're not going to do it. People will say something that is theirs and still not complete it. So through this process, they really start to see they're self-discovering. Am I doing what I say I'm going to do? Am I able to do that consistently? And people honestly realize that they don't. And I think through that process, it creates accountability. It creates ownership of the things that I'm going to do inside of my business. So that's the number one way we hold people accountable, is to what they say they're going to do.
Yep. Yep. And then from the Zillow stuff, I mean, because of like Zillow Flex with all the reporting KPIs that they deliver, we have Zillow Flex as well. So we're, familiar with those. So then it's, I mean, that makes it pretty, because now you just have the system that holds them accountable just through the system and the KPIs. Now, do you weigh leads based, okay, that person that's converting at 25% versus that person, maybe the lowest converter, that's maybe, 7%, whatever it is.
Right.
Are you weighting leads that they are getting from that lead source based on conversion rate? Meaning, of course, within their capacity to do so.
Sure.
But
Well, I think that's the word, right? Their capacity, because I mean, I think we set 300 appointments last month from Flex, right? So it's like capacity becomes one of those things like, okay, how much can those people handle? And if they're converting, what's interesting, and again, this is proof in the pudding, right? Agents always think, I need more leads. I need more leads. I need more leads. Well, the people that convert the highest on Flex take fewer leads. Right. And so I look at Jessica, she's 26%. Shout out Jessica Anthony, 26% conversion on Zillow Flex, right? She's a baller. And I'm like, I scratched my head. I'm like, well, how the hell does she do that? And then finally it kind of hit me actually in a coaching moment. I was like, she's not converting 26 out of 100 like that. She's converting probably 13 out of 100. And then because her follow-up is so good and she's continuing to receive leads, she's converting the next 13 out of that original 100. So she literally has always been our top converter, and she goes up every year. She doesn't go down, and she doesn't take a ton of leads. So I don't weigh the leads based on conversion unless their metric becomes so low that we just take them off. And then to get back on, they got to go back through the Zillow training and, et cetera, to get back on. And now they're like, okay, now we're, the radar is up. We're watching them closely. Right. And it's not to hurt them. It's to help them. And generally that happens because they have too many friggin' leads. They're just like, boom, 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 answering the shit like crazy. But then their follow-up sucks. And we all know all the money's in the follow-up. And now with Flex, right? I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Like we're going to pend 100 this month, and I bet 30 or 40 of them will be Flex, right? So it's a big part of our business, especially this time of the year, because in Michigan, people are just starting to list their homes, right? So we don't weight it, but we do weight it based on price of homes, right? If you're a brand new agent and you just came out of training, I don't need you answering $1 million. I can't have you below in that deal, right? So we do weight them based on that. So based on production, we tier them 3, 6, 9, 1.2, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. Yeah. Now Zillow Flex, like in my market, it's, it started off, I know it was like 20, because we have, 60,000 agents in the market, but it started off with like, I don't know, 2,000 teams or agents that with Zillow, but they weeded it down now to just over 60, and they just keep keep cutting the fat, dude. It's just like, if you are not the best of the best. So then the problem there then is for those that don't have a process like you're talking about, that aren't taking this serious. It's not just about that agent, not getting an ROI on that agent. It's
but everybody else
punishing the whole team and losing the whole account altogether.
Exactly. And I think that's, again, that's that leadership piece. That's the things we have to weigh as we make these decisions, not decisions that everybody loves, but decisions we have to make. And I mean, it's funny because you say, Flex started out big for you. For us in Michigan, we were one of the first 3 to get it. So it started out very small in Michigan. Then it ramped up. And just like you said, now they're starting to cut the fat, for lack of a better term. And so it's just, and I honestly, like, for me, like I just make shit happen, right? Like I'm not the X's and O's. I had the X's and O's when we met because I had somebody giving me the X's and O's. I can read the X's and O's, but I sure as hell couldn't create all those freaking sheets you saw. I'd go crazy doing that. But having that piece through Flex has been so cool for me and for us, because it now allows me to share data with our team that they don't feel like it's not coming from me. So they don't feel like it's top down leadership. It's like, this is your shit. This is your performance. Zillow just handed me the piece of paper and I'm giving it to your ass. So now you got to figure it out. How are you going to get better? How are you going to improve? Or you cannot be on Zillow, because as you said, and that's with any lead, right? Like if you're going to take a lead and you're not going to follow through, one thing I think about is like, people just don't value a lead anymore because it's a lead. They don't see it as a human being that has a need, right? With this term lead, it's almost like a lead is just like a mouse, right? It's not a human being. We need to recognize they are human beings, right? And so if we're really here to service people, then we know we need to do all we can do to serve those people, to take them more serious. But I think the other problem with this is that because internet leads are so plentiful, people didn't have to go out and get those leads. So they just wait for the next one to come along. Right. I remember, I've got my open house booklet, handwritten, sign in open. I was doing fucking 2 open houses on Saturday, 2 open houses on Sunday, and I was taking my 10-year-old along. So the value of a lead to me, when I finally met somebody and got their phone number, I was like, holy shit. It was a holy grail. I took care of that person because I understood how the effort that it took to get them. Yep. And now that's very different for agents that walk into that will come into real estate now. And now it's like, oh, here's a bird, here's a bird, here's a bird, and they just wait for the next one to come along. So the people that really, really do well up front, they do well in the middle, and they do really well on the long-term follow-up. And if people just stick to understanding that, sky's the limit, like Miss Jess, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, and I might have misspoke when I said, I meant like, I don't know if it was Zillow Flex or Zillow Premier, but you had thousands of agents that were able to buy leads from Zillow.
Yeah.
And now, then it's just, all that's just gone. You can't buy them. It's all referral fee. And now it's weaned down to, like 60 of the best,
Well, even in Flex though, they're starting to cut people, and listen, I remember going to Chicago, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. They flew us out there, the people in our territory in the Midwest, and they talked about the things that were coming. They took questions from the crowd. They took feedback from the crowd. The next day, somebody that gave them feedback, I saw them implement that, right? And I was like, man, I like that this company is doing this. And so we were spending $35,000 a month on Zillow, right? Now you also have these agents like, oh, screw Zillow and they're this and they're that. No, they're a business partner for us and a very good one. And they bring something to the table that frankly we didn't have, which is that the transparency of what's happening inside of all of the opportunities. I like to say opportunities instead of leads, but inside of all of the opportunities. And it makes that very transparent for us to say, okay, this person, here are the things you need to improve, work on. Because as you said, if somebody's taking those leads and they're not working them, they're not just hurting the business, right? Because so many people are like, oh yeah, you can make plenty of money. What does it matter if You're hurting your teammates because there's somebody else on the team that would have taken that lead and that would have worked it and helped those people, which then means you're hurting the company as a whole because we haven't built that relationship with that person, that one relationship that matters so much, right? And then you multiply that times, however many you do in a year, that's what really matters. And I think that's just what's missing a little bit in our industry now, as quickly as everything's changing and as abundant as leads are, which is why I don't go buy. It's kind of funny. I'll share this. I was speaking at an event and I didn't even know this. And I actually called him and apologized. But Tom Ferry was like, yeah, you got to have 15 lead sources or whatever. It was a huge number. And I'm like, fuck that, man. People can't even control 3 lead sources. So when I was speaking, my dumb ass, because I get emotional, right? I just talk and then deal with it later. I'm like, you need 3. I mean, honestly, like you can build a huge business on 3 lead sources, and I've done it. I'm not a big Facebook marketer because I feel like it's kind of, it's a little misleading. People tap a picture, next thing you know, you got all their shit. And there was so low converting anyway, it's not worth it. But I mean, we focus on open houses, huge proponent of open houses, because again, you're meeting people, you're building relationships. We focus on Zillow, past clients, and Sphere. And just on those 3 things alone, you can build a hell of a business, right? Now, obviously other things come along and, we do Google LSA and all those things that work, but too often I think it's more leads, and we're just hurting ourselves when we do that.
Yeah. Well, and then you become a jack of all trades, a master of none. I've always looked at success isn't doing 1,000 things, it's doing a few things thousands
Really
of
well.
times, right?
Yeah.
So I'm, now I don't know the context of what he said there. Now, if you're a big team and you can have different departments,
Yeah.
but if you're just one agent, yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100%.
Well, even a big team though, you can get so lost in that. Now, again, you need to build towards that, right?
Yeah.
And here's what I think happens so often is like, okay, there's these 10 different things that I could do that will create, let's say, lead flow, right? I'm going to try all 10 of them, see which one works best. Well, you'll never know because there's no way you can handle all of that, right? So for me, it's like take one thing, apply it, create it. If it works, create a really good system around it. And then you plug that into the machine and then you go find the next thing. So you perfect it and you create the system around it before you implement it, where too many times people are just more and more. And because they never really perfect it, they never really spend enough time on it. Zillow's a great example of this. I mean, I had a manager going back way when, I probably talked about this on the last podcast, that he came in my office one day. He's like, hey, we're dropping Zillow. We're losing our ass and this and that. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then he walked out and I thought, who are we? I mean, these people are on the New York Stock Exchange. We don't know shit. So before we blame them, because this is what agents do with any lead source, they blame the lead source, right? Open houses don't work. Well, that's funny. Danny's writing $1 million offer right now from an open house. Zillow doesn't work. Well, that's weird. We got 40 on the board this month. Like, most of these things do work, but because we never perfected the system to make them work, we blame the source or we blame the lead. And I think that's where people make the biggest mistake. So you're 100% right. You could have freaking as many lead sources as you want, as long as you buy into the lead source, you create a great system for converting around it, and then you plug it into the machine and then you move to the next one. But too often people are bringing 2, 3, 4 things in at a time. They're not giving them the attention they need. And then they say, well, the leads are no good.
Yeah. So then, we're talking about Jessica, the 26% conversions, and you mentioned, okay, you got to be good in the front, the middle, and the end. Can you give an example of, like one of an agent on my team that's one, has really good conversions with Zillow. I think his average is about 13%, and he's pretty new to it, but it's like, okay, well, he's hammering, 3 dials. Like, I mean, number one, a very high call answer rate, but then
Yeah.
it does get him on the phone. Like, he's calling 3 times, like boom, 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 that day immediately. And then he's, every single day for a period of time. And, it's like what is that, can you give
What's the cadence look like?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for us, and again, it's so funny because all the things that we really need to do are the uncomfortable things, right?
Yep.
And so people now, they want to rely on text for everything, right? You got to get people on the phone when they raise their
Or
hand.
AI chatbots.
Oh, fuck me. This shit. I mean,
I know. It's
and listen, I'm sure it has great
clown world.
applications. For me, it's like, okay, whatever. I don't even get any of that. I don't need to get it. I'm a people person. That's where I like to stay. But when we look at like, okay, what's the cadence, right? If you have any lead source, right? The lead comes in, you speak to them on the phone, you set an appointment. What's the next thing you do? You send them a video. Oh, I don't want to send a video. That's uncomfortable. Well, you got to send them a video. You know what I mean? Like creating that cadence. So literally like, and it does, because they think video, they got to be in a podcast room and do some big ass production. No, just at your desk. Hey, Joshua, it's so great speaking with you. I look forward to seeing you today at 4. That's it. Now they have a name with a face, right? You're slowly creating that comfort for the client and that trust. So having something, now what happens after the appointment? You just shake their hand and leave? Nope. Hey, Josh, it was so good meeting you at the appointment. I feel like I need to look at you when I'm doing the shit. It was so good meeting you today at the appointment. If you have any further questions, depending on how the appointment went, of course, if you have any further questions, don't feel free to reach out anytime. Now it might be, hopefully they're going to write an offer and it's like, hey, our address is blah, 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 blah. I think too often people expect too much quickly. They haven't made enough deposits in the relationship. And you can talk about this in anything in life, right? They expect something too quickly. And then as soon as they don't get it, they think, oh shit, the lead's no good, or they're not ever going to buy. And so having a continual cadence after you have a cadence, right? So not just relying on text, not just relying on phone, continuing to send. I sent a video today to some people. I'm trying to buy some shit for our gym and I have trouble getting a hold of them. Right. The one brother put me in touch with the other brother. The other brother was on it for a while. And then so I put them both on a video, and of course, right away they replied, yeah, we'll have it done. You can pick it up on Monday. Well, I won't be here Monday, but somebody will go pick the shit up. But the point is like, you've got to continue. Same thing with me. If somebody's trying to sell me something, I actually like when people call me a lot. Because I'm busy, man. You call me once and leave me a message, I don't even listen to the shit.
Yeah.
You send me an email, I deleted it. So I like when people, now again, what's the approach? I know I'm not really answering the question, but kind of am like, okay, what's the approach? Now I might not like your approach. I don't mind how many times you try to contact me. I might not like your approach when you try to contact me. So if you're trying to sell me shit, right? And I get you, we all get that, right? People trying to sell you stuff. And when people try to sell me stuff, that's when I disconnect. I was going to buy a sauna from this lady. It's like a $6,000 sauna. And she would contact me, email me. That never bothered me until she would send me texts about deadlines. Right. Oh, well, if you don't buy the sauna if you don't commit to the sauna by tonight, you're not going to get the this and the that. And it's going to be 5% more money. And I'm like, yeah, right. Right. So I just continued that conversation, still bought a sauna, just bought it somewhere else. So I think the cadence, the repetition at what we do things, but also what is our message? Because if we're going into this again, thinking like, oh my God, somebody's got to buy something, then intentions I think are so important, and intentions are felt, right? Like I know someone's intentions by their body language, by the things they say. And if your intent is to just get something from me instead of serving me, then I don't want to do business with people like that. So I don't know that answered the question, but
yeah, so I was listening to you ever watch Jordan Belfort, like the Wolf of Wall Street guy?
It's so funny. They were talking about the Wolf of Wall Street in the gym. I've never seen it.
Yeah. Great movie. It's even crazy that it's a true story. But the dude, he's got his own podcast and stuff, and he's a big sales trainer. And I was listening to a podcast of his yesterday, and he was like, okay, when it comes to sales, he goes, 90% of it. So when you start chunking this down, only 10% of it is the actual words. Then you've got 45% is body language, and then what was the other 45%? Tonality.
No.
So people are only actually paying attention to like the words that actually come in your mouth, only 10% of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it comes to your tonality, enthusiasm, you
Yep.
know, making those, I
Yep.
mean, and you talked about this earlier too, when you were mentioning wearing t-shirts and, you know, it's, I do the same thing, but when I was working with clients, I wore a suit every day,
Every time.
you know, right. No matter what. And
even when they said, "Oh, you didn't have to dress like that for me," that's when I know it was even better that I did it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, no, I'm gonna keep showing up like this every single time. I agree with you 100%.
yeah. So all of those things help the conversion funnel. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you got the frequency, you've got, you know, the overall strategy, you got the frequency, but then, and it's not even just, you know, you mentioned, okay, you got to have the words, you got to have the script, but then from there, think of, you know, what is the energy, you know,
Yeah.
that enthusiasm, what is that tonality, you know, how are you treating people? How do they feel on the other end of that phone? You know, and it blows my mind how little people in this industry like go out there to try to improve those skill sets, even though it's, you know, some of the most valuable skill sets that we can actually hone
Because
in
they
on.
don't believe that it matters. You know,
Yeah.
and I think those are the people that think, "Oh, well, shit, I showed up, so I deserve something." You don't deserve shit. You know what I mean? The market will tell you what you deserve. And so if you're struggling, the market's telling you don't deserve anything or you haven't earned anything. I hate the word deserve, but you know, like I always have this fantasy, like when we hire new people, like it'd be so funny to take them to the local grocery store and be like, okay, don't come out. And of course you got to video the shit, right? But like, don't come out until you go meet 3 people. Like, I think that'd be hilarious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I probably will do it at some point, but that goes back to what I talked about with hiring, right? And training, like you can train the shit out of them, but if they can't do those things in the field and connect with people, it's all for naught. You spent a whole bunch of time and energy on somebody that doesn't have the humility to learn the things that it takes to connect with people. Like, it was funny, you know, I talk about interviewing. I had these 2 gals that I interviewed the other day, and one brought in her resume, and I said, you know, no disrespect. I said, I don't really care about it. She's like, "Oh, okay. I put a lot of time into it." I said, "I know, but that told me where you've been. I want to know where you're going." Right. And so it's just having conversations with people to understand who they are. What do they want out of life? You know, do they show? I mean, I stand up, you know, I'm in my 2nd story, right, of this building. So I literally, when I have an interview, I watch how they pull in. I watch how they park. I watch how they get out of the car. The other day, a guy came in, team meeting, starts at 10, pulled in, and I always wait here because I knew he was coming, right? Pulls in right at 10, speeding his ass off, parks in a handicap spot, jumps out. You know what I mean? Like, so I put all that stuff in the back of my noggin, right? Like, those are the things that I'm looking for. Like, who are you at the core? Who are you at the core? Because I can teach you all the other stuff. And I think too often we teach all the other stuff to the wrong people.
Yeah.
And then because of that, they don't go anywhere. And that generally goes back to people just want to hire a whole bunch of people and say they have a huge team instead of saying they have a great team.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and dude, I mean, you're proving it, man. I mean, if you look at your per agent productivity, you know, I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing it's got to be, you
Here,
know,
I'll
the top
text
of the top of
my
the entire
GM. He'll tell me
industry.
in 10
You
seconds.
know, but well, I mean, what I'm going to say by that, I mean, I'm guessing if there was a rating scale of teams, I know this isn't
Right.
included in awards because it's just about how much shit you sell, but they might have a team of 300 that are selling what your team of 50.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at your agent productivity, dude, it is freaking absolutely insane for the size of your team.
Yeah. And I thank you for that, for recognizing that. And it is. And you know what? Honestly, that I'm proud of that, right? Because I want to have an abundance of really good people doing really well for themselves. That's what motivates me. You know, it's like, as we said earlier, you know, we were in a vision meeting, right? And everyone's like, well, what are we going to do? Because with Flex, it allows us to grow, right? We opened an office in Traverse City. They did 30 million last year. I mean, that was awesome. They never could have done that without Flex, right? We've got an office down in Brighton, and I'm saying these words because you're from Michigan. You know, where's the next step? And people start going real far-fetched, like, well, what about an office here? And what about an office there? And what about da-da-da-da? And I'm like, who gives a shit about all that stuff, man? If we just focus on growing this company with the right people, and all those things will take care of themselves, right? Traverse City opened because we sent people from here or there. We didn't just go find some people in the wait and bar, although bartenders are really good agents, by the way, and servers are really good agents, but we didn't go up there and just hire a couple bartenders and say, here, become realtors. We took people from here and moved them there. So it's like, I came up with this concept, like, I want to have 100 agents all earning over $100,000 annually. If we do that, the rest will take care of itself. And that's super fulfilling for me because I know so many of them are going to come from earning 30 or 40 or 50 grand in their lives, thinking that's all they were ever going to be able to do, to earning 100, 150, 200, 250. I mean, you know what I mean? The sky's kind of the limit there. So that's really what, developing people and changing lives. As simple as that sounds, it's not easy, but it's the simple way for me to look at what's our mission here, right? What's our mission? It's not about becoming a millionaire. It's not about all that shit. If those things happen, great. It's not what it's about. It's about developing people and changing lives. And I can go around the room inside of our team at a team meeting and tell you what every single one of them did. I can tell you what money they earned before, and I can probably tell you some things about their personal lives that other people, including their family, don't even know.
Yeah.
Right. And that to me is what really this business is about, is it's tying myself to these people every single day, bringing them along on a journey, being able to go along on that journey with them. Right. It's like the gym in our basement. One of the best things we ever did. Everybody gave me shit for that. Like, oh, manager didn't want me to spend the money. My wife didn't think we should spend the money, and I thought it'd be 10 grand. It was 40. So I didn't know what the hell I was doing either. But that gym now has morphed through time. At first it was just me down there, and then it was me and one other person. Last week we had 17 people down there in one day.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. So
many of them that didn't go to the gym ever.
Yeah.
That's changing lives. One, Stacy, who's been with me 12 years, she's down 40 pounds.
Yeah, so killer, dude. Yeah. So then when it comes to the offices, so the office of Traverse City, let's just, culture being so important to you. And I know that, okay, you brought some of your people from, where you're at up
still
there,
difficult.
Yeah. I mean, walk us through that. Because that is like, when people think about that, secondary, that third location, or having to build that where it's not a drive, quick drive away. How are you able to still carry over and manage, that same culture, that same accountability, that same environment?
I don't think you can, honestly. If we talk about, okay, this is at 100%, and then all these others, you can't, because I'm not there. So somebody would have to take that on. And of course somebody did, but it's still not the same. And so I think there's a threshold of acceptance of that, right? It's like anything else. It's like, okay, well, I'm the owner. So 24 homes per agent was the average last year. That's crazy. That's crazy. And you're probably like, yeah, right, motherfucker. So now I'll send you a graph. That's what he told me. He's usually dead on.
I've vetted you hard enough now, right? I believe in
but man, Joshua, I mean, that is so true, right? Because it's like anything else. Like, okay, I own the place, so I'm 100% in. Well, I can't expect everybody else here to be the same 100% in I'm in. They're not gonna be. I just need a whole bunch of 70 and 80 and 90 percenters. I can't have any 30s and 40s and 50s, but if I have 70, 80s and 90s, then I can handle that. I can deal with that. So I think that's the same thing with the culture. Like, it's not going to be the same, right? Now, all three of those agents up there all came from here. And one of them initially moved up there. That's where he got married. It's where he wanted to live. That's how we put together this plan. And then two of our agents moved up there. They transplanted up there. Now, since then, they've moved up there, right? We had another one that went up and came back. But to answer your question, you're not going to. And I think you're fooling yourself not you, but people are fooling themselves if they think that they're going to be able to spread their wings super far and everything be the same. It's not going to be. So there's got to be a level of acceptance. Now, how do you fine tune it? How do you, try to keep it up? I mean, they pipe into all of our meetings, right? So they're part of that differently. They come to the team retreat. They come to our awards gala. I go up there, not very much, but I do go up there, went up for a golf tournament. So you're trying to spend time with them, communicating on the phone, but it's acceptance that it's not going to be. And so you put the best people in place that you can, and then they take a leadership role, and you've got to give people the opportunity to step up and be a leader. And you've got to understand also that not everybody's capable of that, so that's a very fine line. And I think that's really when I look at growth of a real estate company is so different than, say, a car dealer, right? A buddy of mine owns like 35 car dealerships, right? 3 years ago, I would have said 26. He can go buy a dealership. It already has product. It already has people. And then he just sends one of his best GMs. And he lives, he moves there, but it's very easy because you have a product to sell. In real estate, we don't have a product to sell unless we've built a relationship in order to garner the trust to sell somebody's product. Cars, people are buying cars no matter what. So it's very different. It's difficult. And that's why I think about growth of like, I was listening to something the other day and they talked about, do you have belief? Because belief to me is such an important thing. And he was talking about belief in this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, belief in growth is difficult because now it's like when I used to drive horses, right? Like people like, do you get nervous? I'm like, hell no, I'm in control. When I'm on the sidelines, like I'd have had horses in Toronto, horses in Ohio, horses in New Jersey. Now I'm watching on TV. Now I'm nervous as shit because I'm not in control of that anymore, right? I've got to let go and it's up to somebody else. And it's kind of the same thing there. So I always feel like for real estate, the opposite of a car dealership where there's inventory and there's people and you just send one person to manage it. Growing a real estate company, breaking boundaries, not like just growing here, but going to Grand Rapids, right? You're from Grand Rapids.
Yeah, Grand Haven, but yeah.
Yeah. So for me to go over there and just put a sign up and say Wentworth's here, nobody gives a shit. Here we have a very strong brand, right? Grand Rapids would be like, okay, what the hell is that? And I almost think like for us to really do it right, because I don't love the idea of franchising, like the big players do, they franchise. Well, look at all the franchise, not all, I don't want to say all, the majority of franchises don't sell shit. Yeah. Now, globally they do, but the one next door to you doesn't. The one down the street doesn't, because again, they usually have one or no high producers. Most of them in our market don't even have a high producer anymore. There's maybe one or two. So if I'm going to go to Grand Haven or Grand Rapids, I need to go partner with somebody there that already has trust in the marketplace. And that's difficult to find because everybody wants their name on the door. Yeah. So it's interesting because when you really look at scaling this, of all the things that I think I know, that's the one that I think is the most difficult to really take this brand and scale this brand. Do I have belief that we can do it and will do it? Yes. Do I know how right now? No. Not well enough that I'm ready to go just do the shit. Right. So Traverse City came along because it was somebody from inside of our office that was moving there forever.
Yep. No. Yeah. I'm confident you'll figure it out. It's that next evolutionary, challenge.
Well, and here's the other thing though. It's not that important to me right now. Right. Yeah. I got this going on and I gotta continue to refine and build and grow this because as you said earlier, it's not about me. It's lack of a better word, a lot of mouths to feed. And I love that. I love that weight on my shoulders. I love that responsibility. That keeps me going every day, man. I love that.
So then if earlier in the podcast, you were talking about a mastermind. It sounds like you're putting together a mastermind or what's up with that? Tell us about that.
It's what started happening is agents would reach out to me and these were more so team leaders, right? And this is kind of like that thing where I'm like, I don't want to, and somebody needs to coach those people. But as I said, I already got people here doing that. If you want to go from 10 sales to 20 or 20 to 40, just come join the team. Right. But what really intrigues me is that people in our marketplace, team leaders would reach out to me and say, man, it's amazing what you're doing, which I say humbly, man. I mean, fuck, I never expected any of this stuff. I'm just doing my thing. I'm trying to just serve and lead and inspire people and pay the bills, and I just keep creating bigger bills. So I just keep working harder, but people would reach out and say, man, I love what you're doing. It's amazing. Your culture. It's amazing. Da, 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 da. And I mean, these people, I don't even know. Never met the motherfuckers. Right. And I'm like, wow, that is crazy. And then because of Facebook, really, because of social media, and I'm an open book on social media. I share all the good, the bad, the ugly, right? People are watching even when you don't think they're watching. And I think that's an important step because we had a gentleman come and sit right in front of us, said, oh yeah, you're the guy that he hired that was a manager. You're this, and like knew all this stuff, never liked a video, never commented on a video, nothing, always watching. So people are watching. And for me, when I listen to the stories of where these people are at, it inspires me to want to help them because I've been there. And I know like when I was selling 100 homes a year, there was a point and Sheplack really helped me work through this. Right. And actually Tim, one of the guys on his staff helped me. I don't know if you know Tim, if you've ever met him, but Tim Merrill, great dude. He and I were sitting in a hotel one day and he's like, here's maybe like a formula. And I took that formula and I kind of started thinking about it. I'm like, well, if I change that up a little bit, that could work. What I'm getting at is I could never grow and scale this business if I stayed in sales. And the business was dependent on me selling to keep the doors open. Well, that is not a business, right? If I get hit in the cars and the whole shit's done, which means that all the employees are in trouble, not just the agents, the employees. So when I started hearing what these people were telling me, and again, understanding, we see these teams from the outside looking in, and of course there's a picture painted. Now, not all of them are in this category, but many of them are close to being broke, especially if that team lead stops selling. So I just looked at that. I'm like, man, it would be really so cool to be able to help these people grow their business, to scale their business, marketing, branding. Most people don't really understand that, like everything that it takes to build a real business, right? That intrigues me in helping other people. And then I get caught up in, well, shit, there's all these local businesses that aren't even real estate that would join this mastermind too, because they're already texting me and messaging me, telling me that. So I don't know how I'm going to form it all yet, but at the end of the day, I started getting this, like that makes the hair on my arm stand up. Like if I can help somebody that, fuck, if I don't sell 80 homes this year, we're going broke, and I can help them work through that. Right. And then get to the other side of it and then continue to grow their business. Like that very much intrigues me. Coaching somebody. And I mastermind coach, is it all the same? No, but kind of, right. But the onesie twosies don't turn me on. Right. Yeah. Really helping somebody, like, we've met with people, haven't gone to a kids event in a year. Because if they don't sell, the shit's closing down. Right. And so then that tugs at my heart. And again, that makes me want to help these people even more. So, but at the same time, I just love the idea, as I said earlier, bringing people together. Like when we do events offsite, like I love doing that stuff. So for me, the mastermind's a little bit all encompassing, but it's about personal growth as much as it is professional growth, because that's another thing that I've learned is like, listen, you can have everything seemingly looking great on the outside, but if your marriage is struggling, what's the point? If you're never seeing your kids, what's the point? Right. So trying to really help people. And like you said, going through addiction, going through weight loss, I think you mentioned, like we're on a journey, man. And I know that brotherhood and sisterhood, camaraderie, and that's why the gym is so important, especially here in this building. Like those are the things that help us move along in life and get to the better stage of life, not just in business. Business is certainly part of it, but personally as well. And those are the things, when we grow as a person, that's what we take home with us that has a bigger impact on our spouse, right? On our children. And at the end of the day, man, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more, dude. And for those that are watching and listening, man, if they want to continue to follow you on this ongoing success journey that you're on, or man, maybe they're in Michigan or want to relocate to Michigan and want to join your amazing team, or I don't know if this is a local mastermind or if it's
no, it won't be local. I mean, obviously,
in.
Yeah, we're actually, what we're framing today, we're going off site to work on this, is when we're going to have our first live event, when we're going to roll it out, and when we're going to have our first live event. Because again, I love the idea of bringing people together, right? Bringing speakers in, spending time with these people, really deep diving into their lives personally and professionally. So sorry if I interrupted you, but follow me. I'm not a big Instagram guy. So Facebook, man, John Wentworth, real simple. But yeah, I look forward to that. It's a challenge to me as well, right? And I like challenges. And so just kind of stepping out of my comfort zone, quite honestly, like I always preach that, being willing to get uncomfortable. And as much as I think that I do that, I step into something like this, I'm like, oh, wow, this is very different, right? It's a little bit uncomfortable. Well, how's it going to be seen? How's it going to be received? And at the end of the day, I got caught up in this too. I was like, what's going to be the name of it going to be? And I got lost in all this shit. And I did a video on this. I was driving home and I just started laughing at myself. I'm like, all the things that I'm preaching, I wasn't doing. I was stuck in my head instead of being in my heart. And in my heart, it says, I know my intentions are good for this mastermind and the right people will come along. Right. And when I tie myself back to that, if it's 2 to start, it's 2. I'm gonna pour into those 2. I actually spoke in Lansing, and you'll get a kick out of this, went over to Lansing to speak at a horse racing convention, right? And one of the guys on my team went with me, and 2 people showed up. And I did my thing and I left, and Andy, with the guys with me, he's like, typical Wentworth fashion, 2 people show up and you poured into them like there was a crowd of 2,000. I'm like, well, shit, they took time out of their day just like I did,
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny, and that's what I relate this back to. I'm just gonna roll this sucker out with a big heart, good intentions, and try to help and serve as many people as I can in that capacity.
Yeah, dude. And I've been a part of, and I've been a part of, whether it be the attendee front or the facilitator, so many different masterminds. And I'll tell you, man,
Give me some advice.
Yeah. And when we can talk off air a little bit about that too. But it's like, look, man, you get a bunch of driven, amazing minds in a room. Even if you don't have a topic, you don't have an agenda, you don't have speakers. I've never been in a room with driven, talented, amazing people where amazing shit hasn't come out of that room after the fact.
100%. And I think that's the thing. Like, we go to these coaching things, we go to these events, right? And some people get caught up and they want to learn everything. And I'm always like, what's one thing I can take away? Right. And how can I apply that one thing? Like the last event, I don't know if you were ever in Arate, right? But I went to the last Arate event and Ed Milet shared one thing. And I took that home and I applied that. It makes me emotional, man. I applied that to my kids and my wife. And it was taking time to intentionally tell them about themselves, about how great they are, about how they impact me, about how they impact others. And trying to do it daily, but on the grind, it doesn't always happen, right? And sometimes they're not open to receiving it at the time because they're busy and I want to tell them how great they are. But it's had a huge impact on my daughter. And, just to take the time. And then I started doing it at work. Sarah Minter came in the door the other day. I said, and it was just on my heart. I went, Sarah, I need to tell you about you. And maybe you've heard Ed talk about this. It's the most freaking phenomenal thing on the planet. And I just started telling her, you're such an amazing person. You're so great. Everyone looks up to you. Everyone loves you. Everyone smiles when you walk in the room. You change lives. Like, whatever those things are. And she's bawling and I'm bawling, but that isn't even business related. But like you said, you put all these people that are on a trajectory to just improve each day, right? And by the grace of God, we fail too, and then we have to get back up the next day and go attempt to get better again. And you put those kind of people in a room together, especially people that, they're looking to improve personally, they're looking to improve professionally, they're looking to just simply improve. You're right, man. There's so much good stuff that comes out of that every single time. It blows my mind.
Yep. Awesome stuff, man. Well, I know we're going long on time, dude. And John, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here, dude. This has been absolutely amazing, brother.
Well, thank you, brother. I love you. God bless you and your family. And I'm sure we'll do it again soon. Until then, we'll chat offline.
Yep. Love you as well. And those watching and listening, as always, truly appreciate all your support. Truly appreciate you being here. Keep continuing to kick ass, and we will see you next time.
Peace out, everybody.